Pleasure is often associated with stillness, calm, or the act of lingering sensually. Yet pleasure can also be found in movement, deep, intense, and no less mindful or embodied than the enjoyment of a fine meal or a tender touch. Movement, whether expressed through dance, sport, rhythm, or meditation, offers human beings the opportunity to experience themselves not only physically, but also emotionally and spiritually. Pleasure in movement is not merely a side effect of physical activity. It can be the goal, the source, and the expression of a holistic sense of being alive. Even early in human history, movement was more than a means of survival. It was also an expression of joy. Children dance before they can speak. Animals frolic without purpose, simply for the sheer joy of moving. This joy is primal. It eludes rational control and emerges from instinct, but also from a need for self-regulation. Movement changes one's internal state. It releases endorphins, structures thought, and relieves tension. Anyone who has felt mental clarity return after a long walk knows this effect. But pleasure in movement goes even further. It is that moment when body and mind come into harmony, when running, dancing, swimming, climbing, or simply walking are no longer perceived as effort, but as flowing ease. The body is no longer seen as an object, but as a medium of aliveness. This is what is often referred to as the flow state, a moment of complete absorption where the activity itself becomes the reward. In such moments, the sense of self is not lost, but heightened into a form of deep presence. Pleasure in movement is not the result of a finished outcome, but is found in the doing itself. This unity is celebrated particularly in dance, martial arts, or mindful yoga. Here, movement is not a means to an end, but a language. The body becomes an instrument for expressing inner states. Movement carries a narrative force. It tells of joy, struggle, release, resistance, intimacy, self-discovery. Whether alone or with others, movement becomes a space of encounter with oneself, with others, with the world. And that is where pleasure lies, in this deep resonance between one's body and the surrounding world. However, the modern human has often lost access to this quality of movement. Movement is frequently associated with discipline, fitness, performance pressure, or even pain. Pleasure recedes into the background. The goal becomes calorie counting, shaping the figure, achieving results. But this is what leads many people to burn out. For what benefits the body is not always what controls it, but what brings it back to life. Pleasure in movement thus becomes a counterproposal to self-optimization, a call to play, to let oneself drift, to experience the body outside the logic of performance. Different cultures express this in their own unique ways. In African dance, born of rhythm and community. In Indian yoga, which unites breath and body. In Japanese Aikido, which transforms conflict into harmony. In European hiking, which merges with the landscape. Everywhere that people move with joy, a quiet inner pleasure emerges, one that does not need to be loud, but acts deeply. Pleasure in movement, then, is more than a subjective sensation. It is the expression of a worldview that sees the body not merely as a vehicle, but as a source of meaning. Those who find pleasure in movement often also find a path back to themselves. And perhaps that is the greatest movement of all, the movement inward.